He thought his biggest worry was keeping his mansion spotless, until one day he saw something that stopped him cold. A young black boy, his maid's son, digging through the trash, his hands trembling, his eyes filled with shame. At first, the millionaire couldn't understand why, but what he discovered next would shatter his world and force him to face a truth far uglier than garbage. What could drive an innocent child to this? And how could it expose the hidden prejudice living under his own roof? It was a quiet morning in the mansion, the kind where nothing ever seemed out of place. Mr. Carter, a wealthy businessman, liked things just so clean, orderly, predictable. The maid came in every day, polite and efficient, rarely speaking unless spoken to. Her young son sometimes tagged along, a shy boy with big eyes who kept to himself. To Mr. Carter, they were just part of the background, part of the rhythm of his perfect life. But beneath that polished routine, something was stirring, something he hadn't noticed yet. And soon, one small moment would break through his carefully built world, forcing him to see what he'd never cared to look at before. Mr. Carter was used to order, every surface polished, every detail in place. But that morning, something broke the pattern. Out by the driveway, he spotted the maid's young son crouched near the trash cans. At first, Carter thought the boy was just playing, maybe searching for something he dropped. But then he saw it, small hands digging deep into garbage, pulling out scraps of food with a desperation that made Carter's chest tighten. He froze, too stunned to move. The boy's eyes darted up, wide and frightened, like he'd been caught committing a crime. Quickly, he stuffed a stale sandwich crust into his pocket. His lips trembled, but he said nothing. Carter's first instinct was confusion. Why would a child from his staff be eating from the trash when they worked in a mansion filled with food? But before he could even ask, the maid rushed forward, panic in her eyes. She pulled her son close, whispering something sharp and desperate. Her face carried a shame that cut deeper than any words. "Go inside," she muttered, not meeting Carter's gaze. The boy disappeared, but the image of his shaking hands lingered. Something in Carter shifted. For the first time, he looked past the polished floors and tidy uniforms. He saw exhaustion carved into the maid's face, the way she carried herself like someone who knew her place was never secure. He realized he had never asked about her life, never cared to. She was just a help. Later that evening, Carter overheard whispers he wasn't meant to hear. A neighbor's voice, dripping with disdain. "You let her bring that boy around here? People like that don't belong in neighborhoods like this." Another chimed in with a laugh, the kind of cruel laugh that told Carter this wasn't the first time they'd said such things. Racism had always been something distant to him, something he read about in headlines, not something living right under his roof. But now it was personal. He remembered the boy's trembling hands, the hunger in his. The breaking point came one afternoon, when Mr. Carter drove past the small grocery where the maid had been turned away. He decided to see for himself. At first, the clerk greeted him with a smile, the smile reserved for money and status. But then Carter stepped aside, letting his maid and her son walk through the door. The smile vanished. "Didn't we tell you already? You're not welcome here." The clerk's voice was sharp, loud enough for the entire store to hear. Customers turned their heads, some frowning, some smirking, none speaking up. The little boy froze, clutching his mother's hand tighter, shame spreading across his face like fire. Carter's heart pounded. He expected an explanation, an apology, but instead, the manager stormed over. "We don't serve your kind. Get out before I call security." Time seemed to stop. The maid's lips trembled, but she stayed silent, used to swallowing her dignity to survive. The boy looked up at Carter, eyes wet, silently begging for someone, anyone, to fight for them. And for the first time in his life, Carter felt the crushing weight of what silence meant. He saw the system, naked and cruel, in front of him. Not a headline, not a story. Here, now. His voice shook, but he forced the words out. "They're with me. You'll serve them, or you won't serve anyone." The store fell into stunned silence. The clerk's jaw tightened. A customer muttered, "He's defending them?" Another sneered, "Figures. Rich men think they can change the rules." For the maid, it was another day of humiliation. For Carter, it was the moment everything cracked open, the point of no return. Because standing there, in that store filled with hate, he realized this wasn't just about food. It was about whether he would finally choose silence or justice. The manager's glare burned, but Carter didn't back down. After a long, tense silence, the clerk finally rang up the groceries, each beep of the scanner echoing like a small act of defiance. The maid's hands trembled as she packed the bags, her son still clinging to her side. For them, it wasn't just food, it was dignity. As they walked out, Carter noticed the stares, the whispers that followed. He knew this wasn't the end. Standing up meant being marked, and he could already feel the weight of disapproval from his wealthy neighbors. But for the first time, he realized that the cost of silence was far greater. Later that night, the boy knocked on his door. He didn't say much, just held up a cookie from the bag and whispered, "Thank you." His eyes carried something Carter hadn't seen before: hope. That small moment stayed with him. It wasn't about being a hero, it was about finally seeing what had been there all along. Racism wasn't hidden. It wasn't subtle. It was in the stores, the streets, the whispers at dinner tables. And it thrived every time good people looked away. For Carter, the incident shattered his illusion of comfort. For the maid and her son, it was just one of countless battles they would face. And for all of us, it's a reminder: injustice doesn't vanish because we ignore it. So the question remains, when we see it, will we look away? Or will we finally decide that silence is no longer an option?